What's up guys, AJ Maida here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to prospect expired listings. Alright, so I just finished a workout and I was coaching an agent right before that, and we were talking about how to work expireds. The first thing that you're going to want to do is have proper expectations, because when you're calling these expireds, most people aren't going to answer, and it really depends on what data provider you're using. And I promise you, you definitely do not want to be looking up the information yourself in the MLS or doing a bunch of research before you actually call the person. So let's start there. You want to use a good data provider. There's a lot out there. I've tried them all. And the best budget-friendly, high-value service that I recommend is RedX. Now there's a link in the description that's going to save you $149 from the startup fee. So I highly recommend using that link and using that data. Now that you have data, and ideally you signed up for their dialer as well, their expired service, their for sale by owner service, and a dialer, and it's also can be your CRM system. Once you have all that in place, it's time to get started. So proper expectations. Just know right off the bat, a lot of people are not going to answer. There's going to be wrong numbers. There's going to be people that already sold their house. It's going to be a mix of these things. And knowing that up front sets you up for success, because you don't start calling and start thinking, well, hey, this is a waste of time. I'm calling all these people and it's the wrong number, right? Now that you understand that, this is what I want you to target. So if you're going to be prospecting, say for 3 hours, I do recommend 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, minimum. And once you get like super busy, or if you have other solid lead sources, maybe 2 hours a day prospecting, 5 days a week. But let's just say you got a 3-hour time block, so a 3-hour call session. You should be targeting 8 to 10 contacts per hour. My goal is always 10. 8 to 12 is really a good target. Let's say you're going after 10. 3 hours times 10 contacts, that's 30 contacts. So every day you should be able to make contact with 30 expired listings. Now there's probably a lot of different definitions and probably a lot of confusion around what a contact is. For me, the best definition that I found was basically just somebody that you called that's a decision maker. So if you say, hi, this is AJ Maida, I'm a local real estate agent, I'm calling about the home for sale, and they hang up on you, that's not a contact, because you don't know if you even have the right number. But if they're like, why are you calling? And you say, well, I'm actually calling to find out if the home had sold or if it's still available. And they say, no, we don't want to sell anymore. Or then they hang up. Well, that's still a contact. Okay? So that's what a contact's going to be, getting in touch with a decision maker. So now that you know what a contact is, let's talk about how you should actually be approaching calling these people on day one, right? So when you start calling, you're going to be nervous, but it's okay. To help prepare yourself, make sure you're practicing your scripts. And when you're calling, you should have your scripts up all around your desk. I mean, my first desk was a stand-up desk, but it was from IKEA, and it was a stand-up desk because I put it on boxes, and my scripts were taped to the wall. It was nothing fancy, guys, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. If that's how you have to start, go for it. I sold so much real estate from that little spare bedroom in my house, it would blow your mind. If my clients knew how I was working, I mean, I showed up in my gym shorts like what I'm wearing right now, and when I would get an appointment, I would run around that little 3-bedroom ranch that we were just renting, 8 years ago, and be so thrilled, be like fist pumping the air while my wife was at work as a nurse. And that's how you start, guys. You just got to get started. But I can promise you that fear of picking up the phone was definitely there. So when you practice your scripts and you are getting more familiar with them, and you have role play partners, and when you have a role play session with your partner that morning and go straight into the calls, it makes it a lot easier because it gives you confidence. So we started at the bottom, now we're here. Guys, I built my business on expireds, and you can too. And there's so many other good lead sources out there, but you just want to focus on a couple. So now that you're getting over that fear of picking up the phone, let's talk about what you do when you actually start calling. I want you to think of this in terms of buckets. Day one, when a new expired hits the market, that's going to be bucket one. And you're going to want to call that bucket twice. And in most markets, there's only a handful of expireds every day, so you can call through that pretty fast. And the reason you call twice is because the first time through, they might not answer the phone, but the second time through, it's hard to resist that when you get that call the second time, you're like, who the heck's calling me? So then you pick it up and you answer. So that will actually help you get your contact rate up. So that was a ninja tip that I figured out on my own, and it helped me increase my contacts. Well, what do you do after day one? I'm glad you asked. So you're going to have 5 buckets. And after day one, you're going to be moving those contacts to the day 2 bucket. But before you do that, before you move anything, you just go and call your day 2 bucket, and then you call your day 3 bucket, your day 4 bucket, your day 5 bucket, and then once you get through all of that, now you can start moving people over. So you're going to want to move your day 1s into your day 2 bucket, and so on and so forth. And then your day 5 bucket, because at this point you've called them, you've dialed that number 6 times over a 5-day period. If you haven't gotten a hold of them by now, there's a good chance that you're not going to, but what you're going to do is you're going to add them to the archive list. I always called it the bag. So I literally had a list called the bag because if you remember that song back in the day, just throw it in the bag. That was my mindset. So I just threw it in the bag, and that was my next prospecting list. So once I got through the first 5 days, I had the bag to call, and that was really beneficial because it was a giant list of numbers that I had been trying to get a hold of that eventually built up into hundreds and hundreds of people to call. So I always had somebody to call. And just know this, I don't want you to get discouraged when you start calling. It takes time. Think of it as a funnel. And it takes time to fill that funnel, right? The more people that you put in the top of the funnel, eventually they need to percolate in there a little bit, they need to season a little bit. And then you're just gonna have commission checks dripping out of the bottom. It's really gonna take a good 60 to 90 days minimum to build a strong pipeline. Just, stay engaged, stay plugged in, and be thinking about this in terms of how can I keep building this relationship farm out? So eventually you're gonna have a lot of people who are like, hey, we're not selling right now, but we're selling in the spring, or hey, I have a renter in that property and we're gonna list it when the lease is up, and you find out when the lease is up and you call them back at that time. Eventually, you're going to be having conversations like this 3 to 5 times a day. I call these nurtures. These are people that are pretty cool to talk to, and they give you permission to follow up with them in the future. So you're getting their email address, you're sending them a card in the mail with a picture of their house on the front. If you're interested in that, I'll do a future video on that. That's a super, super ninja trick. And you're doing all these different things to follow up because we haven't really talked about what you're going to do to follow up with these people once you actually get them into your relationship farm. So that's going to be a future video. So if you like what I'm laying down, then hit the subscribe button and definitely like this video because that's going to help other agents who need something like this as well see this video in their feed. So help me out and let's do that together. Well, now that you're following up with them, you're building out this funnel. It's just going to blow your mind when you start having 2 to 3 closings a month. When I started, I only sold 6 houses my first year. I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying everything. I was doing everything that a new agent does. You make mistakes. Back then, I don't know, maybe YouTube wasn't as popular, or honestly, there wasn't a lot of agents on YouTube actually doing this now that I think about it. And I didn't have a coach because I didn't have the money, but eventually I did hire a coach and that helped me out a lot. I put it on a credit card and I only sold 6 houses that year, but that second year, once I figured it out, I sold 36 houses. Actually, by the end of my first year, I had over 20 listings because I really figured out this expired game. I had a focus. I was solely focused on seller prospecting. That included expireds, for sale by owners, and circle prospecting. And for me, some people like for sale by owners over expireds. I always liked expireds over for sale by owners, just a preference. Whatever you want to do, that's fine. But have an order of lists that you call. And I know right now that circle prospecting is super popular. I see it being talked about a lot online right now. And just calling random neighborhoods. Yes, that does work, but I just want you to remember that when you're calling expireds and for sale by owners, it's your fastest way to a listing because you're calling people that you know want to sell their house right now as opposed to just a random neighborhood. So it's my philosophy that you focus on people who want to sell now, who are raising their hand to sell, because it's going to help you get to a closing faster. And if you're like me, when I was a new agent, I needed a closing faster. And I'll just throw this in too because I get asked this all the time. It's like, AJ, how do I open up the conversation with an expired? What do I do? Well, it's important that you follow a script. Honestly, it doesn't matter what script you use for the most part. Some are certainly better than others and some you definitely shouldn't be using. But for the most part, the scripts that you find online and you find different agents talking about on their YouTube videos, they're probably okay to use. The key is just to pick a script and use it. So many agents are like, what script do I use? What do I say? And I just say, pick a script and stick to it. If you're always looking for that magic script, you're going to be stuck in this phase, this amateur phase where you're always learning a new script. You just got to master one of them, make it your own, because a script is simply an outline that gets you to a result that you're trying to get in a predictable way, which is getting a listing in our business, right? So you want to make it your own. You want to have your personality come through. You want your tonality to come through. And that's why it's so important to have that stand-up desk so you're standing up tall. You're smiling when you're talking. You got a mirror on the wall, so you're checking your posture, you're checking your smile, because all that comes through the phone. Unfortunately, when we're calling people, we can't use our body language. We can't use the first impression of our appearance and how well we're dressed because we're professional. So we can only use our words and tonality, and most of sales communication or communication in general is actually our tonality. So a lot of times the words don't even matter, and that's why scripts aren't as important. You want one that you're comfortable with and that you master, because that's going to help your tonality, your excitement, your enthusiasm, your confidence. All that's going to come through. And then you can have your pool rafts in the background for a dip in the pool after your hard work. So guys, in all seriousness, I hope this video was helpful. I just was inspired to make it today. Just threw the hat on backwards, now forwards for this video. And I just want agents to kind of get over this fear of prospecting because I know that the failure rate is so high in real estate, and I hear 90% of all agents actually fail out of real estate in the first 3 years. And that number is just too high, guys. That number is just too high. And if you've been in real estate for a while and you're just not getting the traction you need, it all comes down to prospecting. It's all a numbers game, guys. I promise you, if you're tracking your numbers and we're working together in some capacity, I can look at your numbers and know exactly what the missing piece is. Do you need work on the scripts? Do you need to make more contacts per hour? I can analyze all this data. It's very simple business. It's just not easy. Okay, guys? It takes consistency. It takes tracking your numbers. It takes improving. We just had this amazing opportunity in real estate to get paid at such a high level. Do you think that NFL players just show up for game day? No, they practice all week for hours and hours and hours for that one game day. So why are you showing up in your prospecting sessions, showing up at your listing presentations without ever practicing, without ever getting better, without, investing in yourself to improve as a real estate agent? So I hope you just take this challenge to improve yourself, to really knock it out of the park. And if there's anything that I didn't cover in this video or that you need clarification on, just go ahead and post in the comments, and I'd love to help you.